Lauren had held my hand hundreds of times in 15 years, but the night everything changed, I realized I did not want her to let go. 3 months after my divorce became final, I moved into a 2-bedroom townhouse outside Denver with 12 cardboard boxes, 1 borrowed folding table, and absolutely no idea who I was supposed to be there. For 23 years I had been Mark's wife. For 24, I had been Ethan's mother. I was still his mother, obviously, but at 24 he no longer needed me to remember his dentist appointments or keep cereal in the pantry. At 49, I was suddenly responsible for a life that belonged almost entirely to me. I should have found that exciting. Mostly I found it quiet. Lauren arrived Saturday morning carrying 2 coffees and wearing the faded green jacket I had teased her about since 2014. "I brought your usual," she said. "You are officially my favorite person. I have held that position for 15 years. She walked past me as if she lived there, which in a way she always had wherever I lived. Lauren Hayes had seen me through Ethan's middle school years, my father's funeral, 3 career changes, 1 disastrous attempt at bangs, and the slow ending of my marriage. She never asked me to explain what I could not explain. She simply showed up. We spent 6 hours unpacking. I organized the kitchen while Lauren assembled a bookshelf using instructions she insisted were optional. "That shelf is crooked," I said. "It has personality. It has structural problems. You married Mark despite his cargo shorts. You can tolerate imperfection." I laughed harder than the joke deserved. Lauren looked at me, and something in her expression softened. "There you are." "Where?" "Nowhere." She turned back to the bookshelf. I watched her for 1 second too long. That bothered me. So did the fact that I noticed the silver beginning near her temples, or the small line beside her mouth when she smiled. None of those things were new. Lauren was not new. That was what made it strange. By 7, snow had started dusting the sidewalk. We ate Thai takeout sitting on the floor because the dining table had not arrived. Lauren remembered to order my curry mild and picked every olive from the salad before handing it to me, though I had not mentioned hating olives in years. "You know that is ridiculous," she said. "They taste like regret. You say that every time." "Because it remains true." Later, she stood at the front door wrapping a scarf around her neck. "Call me if tonight feels too quiet. I am 49, Lauren. I can survive 1 night alone." "I know." Her eyes held mine. "That is not what I said." Then she left. The townhouse changed the moment the door closed. I told myself it was because she had filled the rooms with conversation all day. I washed 2 takeout containers, checked the lock and turned off the downstairs lights. On the couch I found Lauren's charcoal scarf tucked between 2 cushions. I picked it up, meaning to set it by the door. Instead, I sat down with it beside me. The fabric smelled faintly like her lavender detergent in winter air. 15 years, I thought. 15 years of knowing exactly who Lauren was to me. Yet that night, alone in my new home, I fell asleep on the couch with her scarf curled beneath my hand, and for the first time, the safest answer I had ever had began to feel incomplete. The next morning I woke with Lauren's scarf still beneath my hand and sunlight pressing weakly through the blinds. For several seconds, I stared at it as though it had somehow betrayed me. Then I folded it neatly and placed it beside my purse. That should have been the end of it. Instead, I noticed everything after that. The following Friday, Lauren came over carrying our usual takeout without asking what I wanted. Pad Thai for her. Mild curry for me. No olives anywhere within a 10-foot radius. "You forgot this," I said, handing her the scarf. I wondered where it went. She wrapped it around her neck, then looked at me. "You washed it. It smelled like takeout." That was a lie. Lauren raised one eyebrow but let me keep it. We ate at my new dining table, which had finally arrived, while snow gathered along the back patio. Friday dinner had been ours for years. Sometimes at my old house. Sometimes at Lauren's. Even during the worst months with Mark, Friday belonged to a cardboard container, 2 forks, and a woman who somehow knew when I needed conversation and when I needed silence. "You are not eating," Lauren said. I looked down. She was right. I am eating. Moving rice around does not qualify. She pushed the curry closer. 3 bites. You are very bossy for a physical therapist. Occupational hazard. I took 3 bites. She smiled without looking up, and warmth moved through me so unexpectedly that I reached for my water. There was nothing unusual about Lauren taking care of me. That was the problem. I was beginning to notice how often she had done it. 2 weeks after Ethan started middle school, she had appeared with coffee because I had forgotten breakfast. When my father died, she changed her flight home from California and sat beside me through the funeral without once asking whether I needed her. She already knew. Even Mark had noticed. One night years earlier, after Lauren remembered some tiny detail I had forgotten telling her, he laughed and said, "Your best friend knows you better than your husband does." I had laughed too. Sitting across from Lauren now, I could not remember why that had seemed funny. "What?" she asked. "Nothing. Rachel." She always said my name differently when she knew I was hiding. I was thinking about Mark. Her expression became careful. Bad thinking or useful thinking? I do not know yet. She nodded and did not push. That was another thing she knew about me. Outside, wind rattled the windows. Lauren glanced toward the glass. "They are saying we could get 8 inches Sunday night. Denver gets snow, Lauren. This is not breaking news. Your furnace made that weird sound yesterday." I stared at her. "How do you know what my furnace sounded like yesterday? You sent me a voice message from downstairs." "I was talking about work. The furnace was louder than you." I laughed, but Lauren did not. "Have someone check it tomorrow." "Yes, Mom." Her face changed for half a second. Something passed behind her eyes and disappeared before I could name it. "Do not call me that," she said softly. Then she smiled and reached for another noodle as if nothing had happened. By Sunday afternoon, the temperature had dropped below 20 degrees. Snow covered the street, my furnace stopped producing warm air, and the repair company told me the earliest appointment was Monday morning. At 6:12, my phone lit up with Lauren's name. I answered before the second ring. "Do not argue," she said. "Pack a bag. I am coming to get you." I looked at the darkening windows, then at the scarf she had somehow forgotten again on Friday. "Lauren, the roads are getting bad." "Exactly." There was a pause. "You are staying with me tonight." Something about those words made the quiet room feel suddenly smaller. I should have been thinking about the storm. Instead, I remembered the look on Lauren's face when I called her Mom. And for the first time in 15 years, I wondered whether there were things about my best friend I had never thought to ask. Lauren arrived 20 minutes later wearing a knit hat dusted with snow, and the expression she reserved for people who had ignored perfectly reasonable advice. "Before you say anything," I told her, pulling on my coat. "I called the repair company. Congratulations. You have successfully completed adulthood. I was married for 23 years. I have evidence of prior experience." Her smile faded just enough for me to regret the joke. Then she took my overnight bag from my hand. "Come on. The roads are getting worse." The drive to her house usually took 15 minutes. That night it took almost 40. Snow swept across the headlights, and Lauren kept both hands steady on the wheel. I watched familiar streets disappear beneath white and tried not to notice how safe I felt beside her. Her house looked exactly as it always did. A small brick place with blue shutters and a porch light she forgot to turn off during the day. I had been there hundreds of times. Birthday dinners. Friday takeout. Thanksgiving when Ethan had the flu. Nothing about walking through that door should have made me nervous. Then Lauren said, "There is a problem with the guest room." I stopped removing my boots. "What kind of problem?" "The pipe behind the wall leaked Thursday. The carpet is pulled up, and half the furniture is in the hallway. I can sleep on the couch." That was the plan. She pointed toward the living room. "Unless your 49-year-old back has suddenly developed opinions." "My back has had opinions since 42. We laughed, and the strange tension loosened. Lauren made tea while I spread a blanket across the couch. Around 9 the lights flickered. At 9:15 they went out completely. "Perfect," I said into the darkness. "Very atmospheric." Lauren found candles in a kitchen drawer. Soon the room glowed amber while snow pressed against the windows. We sat on the rug near the fireplace because it was warmer there, our mugs balanced on the coffee table. Without television or phones demanding attention, the silence felt different. Not empty. Close. "Do you remember the first time you came here?" Lauren asked. "You made lasagna. You hated it. I ate 2 servings. Because you are polite when food is involved. I am never polite about food. She smiled into her tea. Ethan was 9. He spilled lemonade on your rug. You looked horrified. You had just bought it. I did not care about the rug. I looked at her. Candlelight softened the lines around her eyes. I suddenly remembered that evening clearly. Mark had been working late. Ethan had fallen asleep on Lauren's couch. I had helped carry him to the car, then turned back and told her she had become my best friend. Lauren had gone strangely quiet. You cried, I said. Her fingers tightened slightly around her mug. I did. I thought you were happy. I was. The answer came too quickly. Wind pushed against the windows. Lauren. She stared toward the candle between us. What? Why did you cry? For several seconds she said nothing. Then she gave me a small smile that did not reach her eyes. You never asked before. The words landed softly, but something inside me shifted. 15 years. I had remembered her tears and never once wondered what lived underneath them. I am asking now. Lauren opened her mouth, but a sharp gust rattled the window and she looked away. Not tonight. I wanted to press her. Instead I nodded. She had given me that kindness 1,000 times. I could give it back once. Near midnight, she handed me an extra blanket and stood beside the couch. Wake me if you get cold. I will be fine. Rachel. I know. That is not what you said. Her expression changed. For one quiet second, neither of us smiled. Then she whispered good night and walked toward her bedroom. I lay awake listening to the storm and thinking about a question 15 years overdue. Sometime after 2 in the morning, I heard Lauren call my name from the darkness. Lauren said my name again, softer this time, and I was on my feet before I had fully awakened. The hallway was cold beneath my socks. Her bedroom door stood partly open, candlelight from the living room barely reaching inside. Lauren. She was sitting upright against the headboard, breathing unevenly, one hand pressed against the blanket. I am sorry, she whispered. Bad dream. I sat on the edge of the bed, leaving space between us. Do you want water? She shook her head. Outside, wind moved snow against the window like handfuls of sand. Do you want me to leave? Another shake of her head. So I stayed. For 15 years, Lauren had been the person who knew when silence was kinder than questions. That night, I finally understood how difficult that kindness could be. After a while, she said, my mother used to call during storms. I waited. After I told her I was gay, she stopped calling altogether. I turned toward her. Lauren had told me years ago that coming out had damaged their relationship, but never like this. Never with details. You were 25? 25 and convinced honesty would fix everything. She gave a tired laugh. I thought if I explained myself well enough, she would understand. Did she? Lauren looked toward the dark window. Eventually in pieces. But by then I had learned something I wish I had not learned so young. What? Her eyes met mine. Loving someone does not mean they will choose you. The room seemed to become quieter. I wanted to tell her that her mother had been wrong to make love feel conditional. I wanted to say something wise enough to repair a wound older than our friendship. Instead, I reached for her hand. Lauren looked down at our fingers. You do not have to say anything, I whispered. That is usually my line. I am stealing it. Her thumb moved once across my knuckles. Such a small gesture. Familiar. Harmless. Except my body noticed it before my mind could explain it. Warmth climbed into my chest. I looked at Lauren and saw details I had somehow stopped seeing years ago because she was simply Lauren. The silver at her temples, the tired softness around her eyes, the tiny crease beside her mouth. Her gaze dropped briefly, then returned to mine. Neither of us moved. The distance between us felt suddenly measurable. Inches. Maybe less. I could hear my own breathing. Lauren leaned forward almost imperceptibly, then stopped. I did too. There was no confusion in her expression. That frightened me more than confusion would have. For one suspended second, I understood that if either of us moved closer, 15 years might acquire a different meaning. Then the electricity returned. The bedside lamp flashed on. The furnace hummed somewhere below us. I pulled my hand away as if waking from another kind of dream. Power is back, I said. Yes. Lauren's voice was quiet. I stood too quickly. You should try to sleep. Rachel. I stopped at the doorway but did not turn around. Thank you for staying. Always. The word came automatically. I returned to the couch and stared at the ceiling until dawn. By 7, Lauren was making coffee. She wore her usual calm expression. I matched it. We discussed the roads, my furnace appointment, and whether Ethan would drive safely to work. We did not mention her hand in mine. We did not mention those few inches of darkness between us. We behaved exactly like best friends. And after 15 years, that was the first morning the words felt like something we were pretending not to question. For the next 5 days, I became very busy at avoiding a woman I had spoken to almost every day for 15 years. I answered Lauren's messages but not immediately. I blamed work. I canceled Friday takeout because an event client suddenly needed revisions that could easily have waited until Monday. Lauren replied with 3 words. Okay. Next week. No question. No guilt. Somehow that made me feel worse. I kept replaying the storm night anyway. Her hand. Her eyes. Those few inches between us. Then older memories started returning with uncomfortable clarity. Lauren sitting beside me in a hospital waiting room while Mark had minor surgery. Lauren catching the first flight home when my father died. Lauren standing at the edge of family photographs, smiling as though being near us was enough. I began asking myself a question I did not want answered. Had Lauren always looked at me that way, or had I only recently learned how to see her? On Wednesday, a man named David from a corporate venue I worked with asked me to dinner. He was 52, divorced, kind, and pleasantly funny. There was no reason to say no. So I said yes. I told myself it was healthy, normal. Proof that whatever had happened inside me at Lauren's house was loneliness wearing an unfamiliar face. David chose a quiet Italian restaurant downtown. He asked thoughtful questions. He listened when I answered. He made me laugh twice. By every reasonable measure, the evening was going well. Then the server brought olives with the bread. I stared at them and immediately heard Lauren saying they tasted like regret. I smiled before I could stop myself. Good memory? David asked. My friend hates olives. The friend you mentioned earlier? I froze. Did I? 3 times. Heat rose into my face. I reached for my water. David was quiet for a moment. Can I say something without making this awkward? That usually means something awkward is coming. He smiled gently. You seem like you are already emotionally somewhere else. I wanted to deny it. Instead, I looked through the restaurant window at snow piled along the curb and realized my phone had been face up beside my plate all evening. Waiting. For what? Lauren had not texted. Of course she had not. I had canceled Friday. I had created the distance, then resented her for respecting it. I am recently divorced, I said. Maybe I am just not ready. Maybe. David did not sound offended. But I do not think your marriage is the person you keep thinking about. I drove home alone. At a red light I opened my messages. Lauren's name sat near the top. I typed I miss you. I stared at the words then erased them. I typed are we okay? Erased that too. Finally I sent coffee tomorrow. Her reply came less than a minute later. Of course. We met the next morning at the little cafe halfway between our houses. Lauren was already there, holding my usual coffee. That nearly undid me. How was your date? She asked. I stopped removing my coat. How did you know? Ethan mentioned it. Her voice was casual. Her fingers were not. They tightened around the paper cup. I sat across from her and suddenly saw the last 15 years rearranging themselves behind her face. Lauren. She looked up. What? There were 100 safer questions available. I chose none of them. That night when I called you my best friend and you cried. Lauren became perfectly still. Rachel. And the other night when you almost... I could not finish. Her eyes dropped. My heart began beating harder. I leaned closer, keeping my voice low. How long have you been waiting for me to notice? Lauren did not answer immediately. Around us the cafe kept moving. Milk steamed behind the counter. Someone laughed near the window. A spoon struck the side of a ceramic mug. Ordinary sounds, while the woman across from me held 15 years of my life behind her eyes. Finally she said, I stopped waiting years ago. I had prepared myself for almost anything except that. What does that mean? Lauren looked down at her coffee. It means I did not spend 15 years hoping your marriage would fail, Rachel. I did not say you did. But I need you to know that. Her voice stayed gentle. You were married. You had Ethan. You had a life you were trying to protect. I loved being part of it. My breath caught on one word. Loved. She saw me hear it. How long? I asked. Lauren gave a small, tired smile. You really want the answer? I think I need it. She looked toward the window. Snowmelt slipped down the glass in crooked lines. About 11 years. My hands went cold around the cup. 11 years meant Ethan had been 13. Mark and I had still hosted summer cookouts. Lauren had still brought potato salad and helped clean afterward. The night I called you my best friend? That was when I realized I was in trouble. And you never told me. What would telling you have accomplished? I had no answer. Lauren continued quietly. I knew what it was like to have someone make love feel like a demand. I was never going to do that to you. Memories moved through me too quickly. Hospital chairs. Birthday candles. Funeral flowers. Friday dinners. Every kindness suddenly seemed to contain a question, and I hated myself for thinking that. Was all of it because you loved me? Lauren's expression sharpened. No. Please do not do that. Do what? Rewrite our friendship into some 15-year campaign to win you. She leaned forward. You were my best friend. You still are. I helped you because I cared about you, not because I expected a reward. Shame warmed my face. I am sorry. Her expression softened. I learned how to love you in ways that would never cost you anything. That sentence broke something open in me. I looked down because suddenly I could not look at her. Lauren, I do not even know what this makes me. It does not have to make you anything today. But what happened during the storm was real. I raised my eyes. For you. Yes. She swallowed. And that is exactly why I stopped. Because you thought I did not want it? Because you did not know if you wanted it. There was no accusation in her voice. Somehow that hurt more. I spent most of my adult life knowing what box I belonged in, I said. Wife. Mother. Event planner. Straight woman. Then the marriage ended, and suddenly half those labels did not fit anymore. Lauren reached across the table, then stopped before touching my hand. You do not owe me a new label because I told you the truth. I stared at the small distance between our fingers. What if I want to understand this? Then understand it for yourself. Not for me. My eyes burned. How can you be so calm? She laughed softly, but there was sadness in it. 11 years of practice. I almost reached for her. Almost asked her to stay there until I could name every feeling moving through me. Instead, I whispered, I am sorry you carried that alone. Lauren looked at me for a long moment. I was not alone, Rachel. I had you. Just not in the way part of me wanted. Then she checked the time and stood. I have a patient in 40 minutes. I watched her put on her coat. Something had changed, yet she was still Lauren. Still careful. Still refusing to ask me for something I could not freely give. At the door she turned back. Take your time. Then she left. I sat there until my coffee went cold, realizing the most frightening part was not that my best friend had loved me for 11 years. It was that somewhere between the storm and that morning, I had begun to wonder how much longer I could keep loving her only as a friend. For 4 days after that conversation, Lauren gave me exactly what I had never asked for and suddenly hated having space. She answered when I texted. She did not initiate. Friday came without takeout plans, and by 6:30 I was standing in my kitchen staring at 2 empty places at the table. I told myself I needed time. The truth was uglier. I wanted time to stop until I understood myself. Sunday afternoon, I drove to Lauren's house without calling first. Her car was in the driveway. I carried her scarf, which had somehow ended up at my townhouse again, and rehearsed 3 reasonable sentences before ringing the bell. Lauren opened the door wearing jeans and an old gray sweater. Rachel. Something in her voice made my rehearsed sentences disappear. You left this. I held up the scarf. She stared at it, then laughed softly. Apparently that scarf likes you better. Can I come in? Her hesitation lasted barely a second, but I noticed it. Of course. I stepped inside and stopped. Cardboard boxes lined the hallway. Some were sealed. Others held books, framed photographs, and kitchen dishes wrapped in newspaper. What is this? Lauren closed the door behind me. I was going to tell you. My stomach tightened. Tell me what? I accepted a position at a rehabilitation clinic in Boulder. I stared at her. Accepted? Yes. When? Lauren looked at the floor. 2 months ago. 2 months. Before the storm. Before the almost kiss. Before the cafe. Before my divorce paperwork had even stopped feeling new in my hands. You were leaving? I am moving in 3 weeks. And you did not think I should know? I did think you should know. Apparently not very urgently. Lauren exhaled. Rachel, I planned to tell my best friend. I did not know I would have to tell the woman I loved. The words struck differently now that I knew their history. Why Boulder? Because I was offered a leadership position. Because I need something new. She paused. Because I needed to stop building my life around being available whenever you needed me. I stepped back. I never asked you to do that. I know. Her voice remained calm. That is why I am not blaming you. Then do not go. The words escaped before I understood them. Lauren's face changed. Hope appeared for one dangerous second, followed immediately by caution. Why? Because I do not want you to. That is not enough. Lauren. Do not choose me because losing me finally scared you. My eyes burned. You think this is just fear? I think you ended a 23-year marriage 3 months ago. I think you are trying to understand feelings you never expected. And I think I love you too much to let panic make this decision for you. The room went silent. I looked at the boxes, then at her. I think I want you. Lauren closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, there were tears there. Thinking is not enough anymore. I wanted to cross the space between us. I wanted her to make it simple by reaching first, the way she always had when my life became difficult. She did not. For once, Lauren made me stand inside my own uncertainty. So that is it? I asked. No, she shook her head. That is the point. I do not want an ending. But I cannot keep being the safest person in your life, while wondering if I will ever be the person you freely choose. I placed her scarf on a moving box. My hand lingered on the fabric. 3 weeks. 3 weeks. I nodded because words had stopped helping. At the door, Lauren said my name. I turned. She looked as if every instinct in her wanted to come closer. Mine did too. Neither of us moved. I drove home through melting snow with one thought repeating beneath everything else. For 15 years, I had believed Lauren would always be there. Now I had 3 weeks to discover whether I wanted her to stay because she was familiar, or because somewhere along the way, familiar had become another word for home. Lauren moved to Boulder on a Saturday morning under a sky so clear it felt almost rude. I helped carry the last box to her car because 15 years of friendship did not disappear simply because I had finally become afraid of what it meant. We did not have a dramatic goodbye. Lauren hugged me on the sidewalk and whispered, "Take care of yourself, Rachel." I wanted to say I loved her. Instead I said, "Drive safely." Then I watched her car disappear around the corner. The first Friday without her was worse than the moving day. At 6:15 I ordered Thai food from Habit. When the delivery arrived, I opened the bag and found 2 containers because my thumb had automatically selected our usual order. Mild curry for me. Pad Thai for Lauren. I stood at the counter staring at them until I laughed, then cried, then put hers in the refrigerator. Missing Lauren was easy. Understanding why was harder. So I stopped trying to solve it alone. I found a therapist named Dr. Bennett, and during our 3rd session she asked what frightened me most about loving Lauren. That I might be wrong, I said. About her. About myself. She let the silence sit. Rachel, uncertainty is not dishonesty. Pretending you feel nothing because you cannot explain everything would be. That stayed with me. I began rebuilding pieces of my life that had nothing to do with Lauren. I accepted a major spring event project I would once have declined. I painted the spare bedroom pale blue. I learned that I like Sunday mornings alone if music was playing. Lauren and I exchanged occasional messages. Nothing intimate. Nothing cruel. She told me the new clinic was exhausting and good. I told her my furnace had survived another cold spell. We were careful with each other. 6 weeks after she moved, Ethan came over for dinner. Halfway through pasta, I put down my fork. There is someone I think I love. He kept chewing. Okay. A woman. He swallowed and reached for his water. Okay. I stared at him. That is all you have? Do you want me to act surprised? My heart stumbled. You are surprised. Ethan gave me the look he had inherited from me. The one that made patience feel insulting. Mom. Is it Lauren? I nearly dropped my fork. How could you possibly know that? Because I have eyes. Ethan. She flew home early from California when Grandpa died. She remembers your coffee order better than you do. She looked at you like you were the first person she searched for in every room. I sat completely still. Everyone knew? Not everyone. He smiled. I knew she loved you. I just never knew whether you would let yourself see it. My eyes filled. I do not know what to call myself. Ethan reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Then do not start there. Where do I start? With who you love. That night, I stood alone in my kitchen and finally asked the question I had been avoiding. If Lauren stopped taking care of me, would I still want her? Yes. If she stayed in Boulder, built a life there, and never moved back for me, would I still want to know the woman she was becoming? Yes. If Friday takeout disappeared forever, would I still miss her laugh, her stubbornness, her terrible lasagna, the silver at her temples, and the way she challenged me when comfort would have been easier? Yes. I picked up my phone. For once, I did not type a message and erase it. I opened the map instead. Boulder was less than 30 miles away. For 6 weeks, that distance had felt enormous. Suddenly, it looked like a road. I drove to Boulder the next morning before I could turn courage into another excuse. The highway curved beneath a pale Colorado sky, mountains rising in the distance, and for once I did not rehearse every possible ending. Lauren had spent 11 years loving me without asking me to become anything for her. The least I could do was arrive without asking her to become anything for me. Her new apartment was on a quiet street near the clinic. I stood outside her door for almost a minute before knocking. When Lauren opened it, surprise crossed her face. Rachel. Hi. Is everything okay? No. Yes. I do not know. Can I come in? She stepped aside. Moving boxes still lined one wall, but books already filled the shelves. Lauren had begun building a life here. Seeing that hurt, but it also clarified something. I did not want her old life returned to me. I wanted a place in whatever came next. I have been trying to figure out what to call myself, I said. Lauren remained near the doorway, giving me room even now. And I still do not know. She nodded slowly. That is okay. But I know what I call you. Her eyes lifted to mine. For 15 years I called you my best friend because it was the safest true thing I could say. My voice shook. It was true, Lauren. It just was not the whole truth. She said nothing. What is the whole truth? I stepped closer. You are the person I want to come home to. Her eyes filled immediately. Rachel. I am not asking you to move back. I am not asking you to change jobs. I am not asking you to rescue me from being alone. I took a breath. I am asking whether I can love you while I learn what that means. Lauren studied my face as though searching for fear. It was there. I let her see it. And if I stay in Boulder, she asked. Then I learn the highway. A laugh escaped her through tears. That is your grand romantic plan? It is less than 30 miles. I have survived corporate conferences with worse parking. She laughed again, and that familiar sound suddenly felt like something new. I reached for her hand but stopped before touching it. May I? Lauren closed the distance herself. Her fingers slipped into mine. Yes. The kiss that followed was gentle and brief. No fireworks. No dramatic certainty. Just warmth, trembling breath, and 15 years becoming something neither of us needed to rush. For months later, Lauren still lived in Boulder. I still lived outside Denver. Friday takeout alternated between our homes. Sometimes traffic was terrible. Sometimes work ruined our plans. Sometimes I still woke wondering how I had missed what had been beside me for so long. Then Lauren would reach across a table and take my hand, and I remembered that discovering love late did not make it less real. I thought 15 years of friendship had taught me everything about Lauren. It turned out the last thing I needed to learn was how to stop hiding love inside a safer word. Some truths do not arrive late. They arrive when we are finally ready to live them. Thank you for spending this story with us. If it touched something in your own heart, please subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who might need a reminder that life can still surprise us, heal us, and lead us home.